She's got 30 years of experience in civil engineering, beginning work with KYTC back in 1990 and retiring as state highway engineer at the end of 2017. Yeah, she started when she was 11 years old. It's hard to believe that. Patty graduated from UK with a degree in civil engineering. She currently lives in Litchfield with her husband, Jerry. She has 2 married daughters and 2 amazing grandchildren, Keller and Arlen. With that, turn it over to Patty and Jake.
Hold your applause, please. I love seeing all the pieces, all the faces in person. I host this, the Division of Planning hosted a meeting with like 100 people or something every 3 months. And, it's a hybrid, which is like this. Excuse me. So we got like 30%, attend in person, and then like 70% are online still. But does it say how many people are online? Let me check. Participants, 22. So we got 22 of y'all out there in the cyber world. Jeff, Dick, I see you on there. Jay. Daniel Hoker's on there. Okay. I see some of the planners and area development district coordinator as well for the transportation cabinet. So I see a lot of familiar faces out here too. Let's see. It's been a pleasure. It's an honor to be here today. It's been a pleasure working with Patty Dunaway, Michael Baker International. It's great to have that flexibility, have the partnership. If we get booked, the cabinet staffing, that kind of stuff, we reach out to the consultant world, and you guys help us a ton. So we appreciate you all, anybody that's out there in the consultant world. Let's see, I looked up a cartoon, trying to have something funny when we started, and there was a picture, I was coming in from Frankfurt today, and it was a wreck or something was going on. It was all backed up. But anyway, this cop had pulled over an old lady who was sitting in her car, and he said, "I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am. I thought you were knitting." Or she said, I didn't know you were knitting. I thought you were weaving." Old transportation planner joke. All right, let's see. Start with the reason we're here today. Let me get the clicker. Long range statewide transportation plan. Can you guys hear me okay if I stand like this? Okay, now I have to lean over. Let me see if the clicker works. Jacob was checking on the participants and lost the slides. There we go. So my name is Jacob Huber, and Patty Dunaway is with me. The Jungle Gym intro, yeah, it's the reason I put that in. You guys probably wonder why I had that in there. By no means it's the best jungle gym in the world, but to my kids it is, because they have access to it, right? And the relationships there with their dad. Somebody cares about them, has something there for them to go play on. And I love the play, work-play balance. Let's see a few more people walking in. Take a seat wherever. Okay, sorry, just click. So topics we're going to cover today: essentials, why, how, what, schedule, vision, goals, objectives, scenario planning, plan of action, implementation plan, and the next steps. And this quote I had to throw in there, Dwight Eisenhower was kind of famous for this one. It says, "Plans by themselves are nothing, but planning is everything." So it kind of hints at the whole reason we're here, is the plan is great to have, but it's always changing, right? You got to have a network of people in place to update it, year to year. So we'll start out with why. Why are we doing this? I was mentoring with Jason Swallow a while back, probably been 5 years already. We read this book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and he was saying a lot of people will intro a topic, but we don't just tell you what it is, like you care about it already, But he said start with why, so they give you a little bit of reason, to care. So why we're doing it is because we care about you, right? We care about Kentucky, and we're trying to get you back and forth to people, places that you love, and businesses and things, trying to get the supply chain going, keep the economy strong. And then how are we doing it with this amazing team of consultants, Patty and the consultant, and internally we've got 5,000 some people at Transportation Cabinet, and we're all working together to deliver this transportation system. And the next, I think I've got a slide in here on this is in the plans, knowledge page. Mikhail Pelfrey and I are in the Division of Planning, but we, the Secretary's office, the Highway Engineer's office, all these people at the Cabinet, Public Affairs, vehicle regulation, and then the industry, with the industry folks and all that kind of stuff, to reach out into the community. And Federal Highways, obviously, kind of part of the why too. They give us money to help us do this thing, and a bunch of regulations that we try to abide by. Patty's been graceful in navigating all that stuff for us. And then 15 area development districts, 9 metropolitan planning organizations and the 12 highway district offices. And you can see the jigsaw puzzle, when we're trying to coordinate efforts and get everybody in a room, the boundaries are a little different. Each region for the MPOs, the ads, and the district offices, you got some overlap, and the planners in the room know this. So it's by design, really. So you're intentionally crossing borders, and reaching and connecting, and trying to understand each other's planning world. So yeah, what is it? It's a 20-year horizon plan. It's a policy-based plan. So like our 6-year plan is more of a project-based plan. Every 2 years we get funded by the legislature. So that's more of our project-based plan, and then SHIFT is tied in with that pretty close. But this plan is a 20-year policy plan. So we're trying to gauge public feedback, industry feedback, on where do we want to go. We kind of research where we're at, and then we're trying to figure out where we're going to go in the future. So we'll talk about that more as the presentation goes along, some scenario planning, things like that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patty Dunaway. Like I say, excellent consultant team. She can kind of talk about there's 4 or 5 of you, I think, on the consultant team, High Street and Razor Communications, a couple of other ones that did all the research on the documentation and the visioning process. So I'll turn it over to her to kind of go over the steps.
Yep. Thank you, Jacob, and good morning, everyone. So some of you may have seen the presentation at KBT. So we kind of were through the first phase then. We've been very busy the last few months in the second phase. So just to kind of give you a quick update. So with this long range plan update, we first wanted to take a look at all the existing plans, all the various modes, because this is a multimodal plan. And it covers all of the transportation system in Kentucky. So we wanted to make sure it was all inclusive. So we made sure that we gathered data from all modes. If you saw Jacob on that acknowledgement page, we had a Vision Executive Committee membership that had the leaders of KYTC, Federal Highways, and some other leaders in the state. Then we had the Multimodal Advisory Committee. Some of you all in this room were part of that. And we had the statewide planning group that meets with the Division of Planning often. So all of you all were key stakeholders that gave input during this first phase and into the second phase. So in a few minutes, we'll talk more about the scenario planning analysis that was done. Jacob's going to cover that. And then I'll lead into actually the development of that draft plan that took all of the input, and it also included an implementation plan, which this is new for Kentucky. In other states with some of their long range plan updates, they have been doing implementation plans. And we wanted to do that here too, to provide some tasks to help Kentucky, KYTC, all modes of transportation, to focus on to help keep this as a living, active document and continue to move Kentucky forward. So the next phase that we're getting ready to enter into, starting on October 3rd, will be the review of the draft plan. And we have a survey that'll go along with that we'll talk about more here in just a minute. From all those various input that we got from those committees, as well as the first survey that was done, I want to thank everybody that participated in that. We had some 8,300 participants. We heard and got great input. And this is just a word cloud that kind of represents what we heard that day. So for all of us here in Kentucky, maintaining or taking care of the transportation system that we have is very important. But also you see safety jumps out there. You see the various modes with pedestrians and bike lanes and mass transit, light rail. A lot of those were to the forefront for us as well. But then you had also, making sure we have accessibility and things like that all went into the development of the vision for this compilation of this long range plan. So also the national performance measures that are provided by the USDOT, we wanted to make sure that those were incorporated. For one, it's a requirement, but it's also important to make sure that we're focusing here in Kentucky, our transportation system, just like we are nationwide. So you can see that the vision that was developed is for a viable, reliable, and resilient multimodal transportation system to provide access and mobility for all users for the safe movement of people and goods. To support this vision, we also came up with goals and guiding principles. So the goals are the things that we can continue to focus on, but the guiding principles to me was really key, because those are I don't want to say the buzzwords, but those are those topics that are important to us here in Kentucky as well as nationwide. They include the quality of life, equity, adaptability and sustainability, seamlessness, and economic vitality. So it talks about us personally in our lives here in Kentucky and how we interact, how we get from place to place. We want that seamlessness. We want our transportation system to be adaptable and sustainable. So we want to focus on that. And here in Kentucky, just, recently with all the economic development, we want to make sure that we are prepared for that and that we make sure we consider that in everything we do in our planning. So, like I said, the scenario planning process was new to Kentucky. Jacob was pretty excited about this, coming in the first time throughout this plan update. So I'm going to let him talk to him. And you all will see Jacob's very passionate about this stuff. So it's been exciting to work with him.
Yeah, thanks, Betty. And some of the slides, if you can, these are all in the draft plan. So when you review it, you'll see these in detail. So if they look a little small, like some of the wording and stuff, this is basically a slide out of the plan, right? So you have to weed through there when you take the survey, this next survey that Patty will talk about later. You have to weed through there and read every little piece of this and let us give you feedback. Okay, so yeah, scenario planning, it was kind of new to me. So there's a learning curve. I came from construction world where, you got a set of plans and you built it, there's a lot goes into it. See Dave sitting back there, he knows firsthand all of the people involved, all the people you got to call and things when you can run into something and cover something. So scenario planning helps. It helps you just be better prepared, help the boots on the ground that much more. And the cabinet, it was the first time that I was aware of. I think first time the cabinet's incorporated in that long range plan. And Patty had consultant was High Street working with Michael Baker. And they did all this research, they were gathering all this, the past plans we had, the past revenue, and getting projections for 20 some years in the future. That's kind of tricky to do. How do you do it? But they use their professional expertise and professional judgment to give us some revenue projections. So we came down to 4 scenarios. It says they're exploring uncertainty, stress test, risk, be prepared, you can overinvest. We call it stranded investment. I heard that term the other day too, stranded investment, where it's not really generating anything. Or you can underinvest and you miss some opportunities possibly. So the 4 scenarios we came up with were survival modes, which is like, wars or pandemics, like we had the last few years, severe weather events, high energy prices, stuff like that. It's it's not really doom and gloom. It's just the survival mode. Everybody's the money might be tied up other places because you've got other priorities and that kind of thing. And then there's a live, work local, which, rather than everybody just moving to the big cities, living locally, not having the long commute times, and, having the sustainable communities and things like that. So that's the scenario. And global market growth is, we're kind of in global, we're definitely in a global economy, but like booming freight, booming kind of heavy transportation type growth. And then tech innovations, whereas like you got a lot of telecommuters, you got a lot of like teleworking type stuff, where they might not be using the network as much. So what do you do then? You try to research these trends the best you can as you go. But we came down to those 4, and we kind of had a meeting of the minds. We at the cabinet we had Secretary's office, state our engineer's office, and the different offices around the central office building and district offices. And we started with like 12 scenarios, and we got it down to 4. But we took this data that the consultant had researched on the investments that we made, where we at like a baseline, and then they kind of projected it 25 years to kind of give us an idea how much money you spend in each of these programmatic areas of like roads and bridges, transit, ferries, safety, and for each different future, how does that change your investments? Like you got to take a little out of this pot, pay a little more extra into this pot. And this decision lens tool was on, they were part of her team as well. But they've got these little speed dial looking things that, if you're in the green, it's kind of like over investing a little bit, red is a little under investing. There was kind of a sweet spot. Some of the different scenarios had the color swaths were a little bit different links. And it was for performance goals, like the I don't know if Tracy's in here or not, but there's performance goals you got the feds are kind of looking for that we're trying to hit along the way as well. So you got this money you're trying to do, and then you're trying to hit the different targets. And so, it was fun. I mean, and by no means do we have like 4 secretaries in, each group or whatever. We have one. So it was just kind of the working people. That was the intent was to get like, how does it affect your job? In working in highways or working in maintenance. So wherever you're at in the cabinet, how does it affect your job with this different future? So we were able to pull out some of those ideas and consolidate and put them in the plan. And the main goal, in my mind, we came up with some great action plan, implementation plan that Patty will talk about in a minute. But the main goal in my mind was to get people thinking that way, like you're part of a big team. So it's one thing if you want to argue for more money, but also understand you got all these different pots that we're trying to fund and keep the system going. And the plan is very multimodal in nature. The Fed guidance is kind of that way, but it's also, there's a lot of different factors for that. But so it's a neat way to get people's brains thinking about all the different modes, not just highways, but rail and freight and water and all that kind of stuff. So with that, and like I say, coming from construction, I've got to see my old boss back here in the back corner looking at his phone. But in construction, we had a lot of fires we had to put out on the spot, and it's just nice to know that this effort's being made in planning to get people talking. So when you always know when you got a problem, like what are we going to do? It always helps to have the phone pick up and call somebody that is involved early on, knows who has the funding or who has the intel to get something done. So the implementation plan was very important to me, and us to have this long range plan, but also what actionable steps can we take to get it done, and who can find it. So Patty, you come on back up here. I'll turn it over to you to talk about some of these specific steps. And then I'll come back and say bye.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. So as Jacob mentioned, like I said, it is a very much a team effort from everybody. Like I said, the Michael Baker team, he mentioned several of our partners with High Street, Razor, as well as Decision Lens and Morrison Associates. Probably going to forget somebody, but we had a great group. And like I said, it took this full team to get to this point. And this is where I kind of wanted to focus our presentation on today, because this is what kind of propels us into the future and keeps this thing as a living document that we hope will be a resource for all agencies, multimodal groups, that kind of thing. So we talked about those existing plans. So Kentucky and all the different modes have lots of different planning studies that are going on. You all can see presentations from other ones, like the Complete Streets was just right before us. And there's many other ones that were included that we reviewed, kind of did summaries of, and then kind of come up with modal reports for each of the various modes of transportation, and then the scenario planning analysis. So Jacob kind of talked about that workshop that was really good in drawing out the leadership's opinions. And then all of that was funneled through the vision that I presented to you a little bit earlier, so that we could develop the plan of action and the implementation plan, which is kind of the key outputs from this plan update. So from those breakout sessions at the workshop, we came up with these categories that we kind of heard over and over again, and going through the Decision Lens process, looking at funding, considering the needs, looking at all modes. So we had these funding and revenue, programming and project decision-making, then KYTC's organizational structure itself, and standards and processes. So from that, the team kind of developed recommendations for policy changes or new policies, strategies for investment, new programs, changes to existing program structure, and organizational changes. So we had a compilation from each of these 4 categories that basically was kind of like a brain dump. We just kind of thought through everything that we could possibly come up with that might work into tasks. So the next step was developing these implementation plan tasks. And guys, this is where we are in the process right now. Today, I've asked Mikhail and Jacob to kind of get final approval from KYTC leadership, Federal Highway leadership, because we wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with these tasks that we were kind of throwing out there. Just starting with the first category there, with that funding and revenue category. We all know here in Kentucky, we're a little bit unique in the fact that we have to go through, our highway plan has to go through the legislature and get it approved, as well as, the funding that goes into the road fund. Other modes of transportation have various different ways that they get their funding. So it's kind of a challenge. And coming up with some tasks that I highly recommend you look at our draft plan, just to kind of see some of the things we think are recommendations for possible changes or improvements. And of course, we're going to mention who is responsible for that. So in that first category of funding and revenue, the legislators will have to be a big part of that conversation. It'll be led by the Secretary's office, State Highway Engineer's office, and I'm sure they'll pull various divisions in, just like they do during any legislative session, so that we can talk to them about the funding needs, about possibly adjusting how the funds within the road fund get divvied out to line items that it goes to. We will talk about, okay, do we need to consider more of what Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock calls a transportation fund versus a road fund, so that you can consider all the modes of transportation. That was something that's been a big topic of ours, because our modal partners that have participated, they really struggle with getting funding. Within KYTC, you got the Department of Aviation. In the past, they've been able to get some designated funding, some $10 million. Here lately, it's been a struggle. They just haven't had that. So that's just one example. Buses, transit, all of us try to work together so that we make this seamless system and provide to the people of Kentucky. So that's the first example, the programming and project decision making. So Kentucky KYTC has implemented the shift process. So looking at it, and there's been great iterations of it and making improvements. John Moore was kind of the father of that and getting it started whenever I was still with KYTC, getting that process going. And I've seen a lot of improvements, but we have some recommendations that could be done to shift to include more consideration for other modes, possibly looking earlier on at environmental utility issues, things like that, as well as considering the weights for access management, economic development. So making some adjustments to that in the consideration. So that kind of falls within that second category. The next, the KYTC organizational structure. So one, KYTC, historically has, kind of had trouble being able to retain staff. I see now it's for us, me as a consultant, along with several of y'all in this room, that's an issue for us as well. Making sure that you have that experience and that knowledge within your organizational structure so that you can continue to carry it forward and train others, as well as making sure that you have the various divisions or departments that you need. So one of the recommendations is to consider the creation of a new division within KYTC. Like I said, that's also has to involve the legislators in order to get that done. So it is a challenge, but to kind of consider, this sustainability and resiliency, as well as our cybersecurity and kind of how all that intertwines. So that is an example of a recommendation that comes out of that category, as well as ways for KYTC and throughout all modes to be able to build up people so that they want to join our industry, and that the others the experienced people want to share with the new people we have. And then the last one, that standards and processes updates. That's just taking a look at within KYTC, within the way that the funding is distributed again, as well as the various processes, and making some suggestions for improvements. Wish I could have shared with you all the list of tasks today, but also wanted to make sure that you all wanted to tease you a little bit. So hopefully that you'll go to that draft plan and review it. Katie and Keith did a great job going through their section by section in their complete streets. So I didn't want to focus on that because I really wanted to kind of tell you all just how we got there. And the primary thing, if you all don't have time to read our 100-page document, I understand. I'm very busy as well. It will have an executive summary, and then it's going to have that broke out task list for each of these categories within the implementation and kind of a conclusion. So we ask that you please join us in reviewing that. the next few steps, like I said, we will be sending out resource agency letters. Some of you all, your agencies will be receiving them. And then the actual survey will be released. We will have hard copies that will be placed at our statewide planning partners office. So the ads, MPOs, and highway district offices, as well as central office for those that want to review a hard copy. And then electronically, we will be distributing it. I just ask that if you are on the distribution list, that you share it within your organization or your committee lists, things like that. And then after the review, we will have that survey. So the survey basically tries to draw out, your thoughts, seeing if you all feel that we met the goals, met the vision that has been set, and trying to place, I guess, a path forward for all of us here in Kentucky for our multimodal program. So like I said, we want to make sure that we keep it. There's just a snapshot of that survey. It's kind of in its final iteration now. That survey will end on November 2nd. It's that 30-day federal review. It will be also housed on our Story Map website for the project, so that you can go there and take the link to both the survey as well as the various documents that compose that. There are appendix that will be available on this website as well, so that if you're interested particularly in one mode, you want to dive in and really do the data crunch and how we got to the recommendations and the various things that we found there. But like I said, this is a living document. These tasks are going to help us continue to move forward, focus on continual improvements. And, who knows what we're going to be facing in the future. Jacob talked about those scenarios that we kind of boiled down to those 4. And guys, if you just think about it, we have faced those already just here within these last couple years with the pandemic, kind of having to force us into that survival mode. Like I mentioned, the economic development boom that we've got with the battery plants that are coming in addition to what we already had here in Kentucky with our hubs for transporting for freight movement. So all of those not only are likely, they are already happening. So this will help us to kind of prepare, looking at our full transportation system and trying to make some changes so that we can improve it and be responsible with the transportation system that we work in and use and our families use every day. So I'll turn it back to Jacob.
Yeah, thanks, Betty. So let's see, well, I have like one more slide here, I think. We got any questions in the chat? I know nobody's asking questions, but we're not asking any questions. Okay, let's see. So next slide. So to take the survey, like we had one survey already, it was public outreach. I know everybody in here took it already. But this video was made it was like a partnership with public affairs, the cabinet, and the consultant, Razor Communications, and the secretary was on. You'll see him on here as long as it plays. Let me play it for you. And it's not we'll probably have a different one, kind of an updated one. In October 3rd is when the second survey is going out. But you can, if you haven't watched this already, I'm going to play it because I thought it was cool.
The Commonwealth is going places to work, school, shopping, games, grandma's house, our spacious parks, and countless other destinations. The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet is working to make sure that you get there safely and efficiently. But we need your help. We're updating our long-range transportation plan and would like your input. Our goal is to meet your needs for traveling in and around Kentucky while preparing our transportation system to adapt to changes as we move forward. We need your voice telling us not just how to travel now, but how you want to travel in the future.
Every one of us relies and depends upon transportation to get us where we need to go, to connect us with our jobs, with friends and family, to the people and the places that we love and care about. But transportation is more than just about cars and roads. We want to help Kentuckians get where they want to go, however they want to get there. And that means whether it's by car or by bus or by boat, or on a bike or on foot, or even in a plane. We want to help Kentuckians get to where they need to go.
Kentucky's long-range plan is updated about every 7 years to stay current and meet the needs of today's rapidly changing transportation environment. The last plan was finalized in 2014. As we now update our long-range plan, we will analyze the data, trends, issues, and forecasts that affect all modes of transportation throughout Kentucky. We will also be gathering and evaluating valuable input from the people throughout the Commonwealth who use the system. And that starts with you, from improving travel safety, to reducing congestion, to preparing for new modes of travel. We need your feedback. Once our plan is complete, it will be used to guide transportation policy decisions and statewide investment strategies for the next 25 years.
Our mission is to provide the people of Kentucky and those that travel through our state with an efficient, environmentally sound, and safe transportation network. Multiple opportunities to provide your suggestions and opinions will be available over the course of our year-long planning process. And you can get involved right now by going to our website and taking our interactive survey. It's quick and it's easy, and it's a great way to make sure your voice is heard. Kentucky, we all have an important role to play in the future of our transportation system. Let's make sure we get there together.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary Gray. So, like I say, if you go to that website,
The common
if you go to that website, obviously it won't be the interactive survey. It's not gonna be up yet, but October 3rd, we'll have a new one for the draft plan. And show of hands, anybody take the first one? Anybody take the draft? All right, impressed. So you kind of know the process already, but those of you that are new to it, October 3rd, like I say, the website is right there. Or you can Google, I think I just Googled, or whatever your search engine is, Bing or whatever. If you Google like KYTC LRSTP, it'll pull up the website. So something I've been learning about the marketing world is there's a lot of tips and tricks there. How are we looking on time? Time is it? 9:33, okay. When's the next presentation? 9:40, sweet. Yeah, we'll get you out of it. That's the last slide. Like I said, anybody got any questions for me? Has anybody done scenario planning? Show of hands, anybody? 1, 2, 3. So it'll be new for everybody. Everybody can learn a little bit about scenario planning. I kind of like the idea for like my house. Maybe I can do some scenario planning at home with the kids or something, figure out 4 different futures and 4 different budgets. Maybe I can try. Has anybody got questions for long range plan? Anything that you're curious about or would like us to implement, things that maybe if you're familiar with long range plans that you wish Kentucky would do? Anybody got anything like that today? Nothing. Everybody's hungry or thirsty. I have to think of some more questions. Patty, you have any more questions? Should we ask them anything else?
Nobody's asked any questions online. Just a reminder.
We'll turn it back over.
I will add though, if you haven't done so already, the easiest way for you to fill out your survey